What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what steps Bungie could take to make Gambit great again. There was a time when Gambit was all the rage and looked at fondly in the community. No, I'm not joking. Before becoming the meme that it is today, there was a time in September 2018 when everyone was super hyped about Gambit. And why shouldn't they have been? A brand new playlist activity hadn't been introduced to the game since Vanilla D1. A week before Forsaken released, Bungie gave us a weekend to try out Gambit. I remember it well because I was out of town and couldn't partake, but I had spoken to my friends raving about just how awesome it was. Content creators were praising it, and I mean, on paper, it is super awesome. It was the first PvEVP game mode that Destiny had ever introduced. What wasn't to love? It had the alien slaying component that PvE players love, mixed with the Guardian vs Guardian competitiveness that PvP players desperately desire. On paper, it was perfect, and in a vacuum, the game mode was really good. I remember Dado having a video on it explaining how fun it was to play at GuardianCon, but in those play sessions, loadouts were curated, meaning you couldn't use a bunch of busted meta weapons and builds. And even if they hadn't been, the sandbox was a lot different back then. Guardians weren't as powerful as we are today. Build crafting was in its infancy, and double primaries had just been ushered out and special weapons were back. But once Gambit got released into the wild, players and teams could stack together builds and team compositions that could make melting the primeval a breeze, and invader metas really began to take shape. The first being the Sleeper Simulant meta. Sleeper was an absolute menace. You could pick up 4 shots from a single heavy crate, which was enough to easily wipe a team of 4. It could one-shot body players and basically had infinite range. In this clip from CB Gray, you can even see him kill an arc staff with a shot to the foot at full health. So yeah, Sleeper was a little bit busted. Bungie responded to this by nerfing the amount of ammo you could pick up from a crate from 4 to 2. This was honestly a good change. It prevented easy team wipes and didn't affect the Sleeper in other areas of the game as far as I can remember. At least they didn't nerf it damage wise. I think ammo pickups were fine in other aspects of the game. This was a Gambit only nerf, so props to Bungie. Sleeper was definitely a problem, as even my average ass was able to wipe a ton of teams. Once Sleeper was dealt with, a new exotic linear fusion rifle entered the meta, the Queenbreaker. This weapon had ridiculous aim assist and allowed you to get some insanely easy kills from basically anywhere on the map. So once again, Bungie stepped in and nerfed the aim assist, but at the same time, they increased the damage in PvE for linear fusions by 10%. So once again, they did a good job of balancing the outlier. They nerfed its effectiveness for invaders, while actually making linears better in the PvE sandbox as a whole, even if they were a little harder to hit shots with now. To my knowledge, this was kind of the end of the linear fusion rifle invader meta that was present for about the first 6 months of Gambit's life. Then we fast forward to the Truth meta. The Truth rocket launcher came out with Season of the Opulence, and you had a rocket that could hold 3 in the chamber and had intense tracking. Honestly, don't recall if this was ever nerfed at the time, but recently we have been in a tracking rocket meta with things like Eyes of Tomorrow, Truth, and Galahorn being absolute terrors in Gambit. I got team wiped by just one G-Horn rocket earlier this season, and our team lost in excess of 30 motes. From a single rocket. That's kinda busted if you ask me. So what did Bungie do? They nerfed rocket tracking in Gambit and other PvP areas of the game. So again, this was a nerf to a subset of weapons that primarily stems from a Gambit invader problem. And one more invader meta I haven't mentioned was the Xenophage meta. Now, I don't know if the nerf to Xeno's RPM was a result of this, but if it was, this was the most egregious change. I used to love Xenophage, but since this change, I use it a lot less. Unless it is a security encounter in Deep Zone Crypt, I never really have a reason to use it. And that is sad to me, as I think it is such a cool weapon. Again, I don't know if this one was specifically Gambit related, but I feel this nerf should be reverted. And in the last month, Bungie had another Gambit invader problem, where weapons were doing PvE damage on other players. This stemmed from Bungie trying to get rid of light level power being enabled for the PvP section of the game, but something happened and we ended up with one-shot Hawkmoon shots with only one paracausal round, and one-shot body shots with Ariana's Vow as long as you had the first glance buff active. You heard that right. Ariana's was one-tapping Guardians. Kinda broken. Again, to Bungie's credit, they patched this quickly. I think it only lasted a week or two, but it is just another example of invasions in Gambit being severely unbalanced and causing big problems in the game mode. So now, with Witch Queen, Bungie introduced a change that allows us to pick up a heavy after every ad wave is cleared. So their solution to the invader heavy spam has been to fight fire with fire. and so far, general sentiment from the community is that this change kind of sucks, at least on Twitter and Reddit. But then again, people are always complaining in those spaces, so maybe the silent majority actually enjoys it. I do not know. However, this brings me back to the original message of this video, and that is, what if we removed invaders from Gambit? Now, before you freak out and call me an idiot in the comments, I do have some compelling reasons for this suggestion. First and foremost, Bungie is introducing Gambit Labs this season. So what if they did a week where we just had no invaders entirely? I mean, it can't hurt, right? Fortnite just removed building from their game, and that is like the core pillar of Fortnite. So maybe Bungie could follow suit and do something similar. And unlike Fortnite, where it affects its entire gameplay, this is just in one activity of the game. And it is an activity that is generally despised among the community and constantly memed on. So why not shake things up? I actually enjoy some aspects of Gambit. I prefer to go into full Slayer mode and make awesome builds for clearing ads in record time. Datto recently did a video on how champions pigeonhole your builds too much, and I feel Gambit is actually one area of the game where your build can be put to extremely good use. Can you win just slaying out with weapons? Of course. But if you have a certain build and playstyle, you can mow down enemies extremely quickly and efficiently. So I love this aspect of Gambit. To me, I have the most fun when I can slay out on a bunch of enemies because of a highly optimized build. What sucks is all that work going to waste because a guy comes in and shoots a rocket to your side of the map and wipes your entire team. Let's be honest, that doesn't take much skill. I do think Bungie's recent change to invader wall hacks, taking them away when aiming down sights, has definitely been a good change. But I see that change and think, will it ever truly be balanced? Invaders have long been the deciding factor in Gambit games. I enjoy Gambit with a fire team because I can slay out and I know my team will have an invader who will go in when they are supposed to, and I typically don't have to worry about killing the enemy invader as my teams just let me slay. But when you are solo, it is such a frustrating experience. You can be one mote away from an invade and Johnny Dayjob is running to the next wave with 14 motes only to die trying to get the 15th. You then get invaded, lose more motes, or are prevented from slaying due to the invaders present, and the match just snowballs and there is no coming back. All because one person didn't bank motes at the right time. If they had, you or someone else could have invaded, wiped out some of the other team's motes, and you probably win the game. In my opinion, that is far too much emphasis on one aspect of the game. But as we all know, that is how a lot of Gambit matches go. I just feel like invaders are incredibly tough to balance properly. They control a game more than anything, even now. Gambit is defined as a device, action, or opening remark, typically one entailing a degree of risk that is calculated to gain an advantage. I think Bungie hit the nail on the head when they were naming this game mode. So you have to decide best when to bank and when to invade. You have to consider a good time to go for a primeval melt and unload all of your damage. If you do it and you don't get the kill, the invader could heal the primeval, and then you have no more firepower to take it down. So again, I understand invading is a core tenet of Gambit. But through its now 3.5-year lifespan, invading has always been the most dominant aspect of Gambit. Another issue with all this invader balancing is the dev time. In the opening part of the video I mentioned all the nerfs to all the weapons over the years, and all were to rein in invades in a game mode that has only grown more detested by the community. I appreciate and respect Bungie for trying, but at this point, these half measures aren't cutting it. Freelance Gambit is a great addition. Primeval health gates are definitely a good addition overall, as primeval melts were certainly busted, but they still leave a bit to be desired. But again, invading is and always has been busted. I have won games I had no business winning because of a cracked invader, and I have been on the losing side of those games as well. Despite doing everything right, we still lost. I had an invader build with Star Eater scales that allowed me to get a super by the first invade. Granted, this was before the changes to super cooldown, but the point still stands. A 3-shot golden gun is just as busted as these heavy weapons. So it is not just a heavy issue, it's an invader issue. In Gambit Prime, I could put on an invader set, pop a bubble on the bank, and just bleed the team's motes. There are a lot of cheesy ways to build as an invader, and I just remembered I completely forgot to talk about the 1k meta for invaders. 1k is a beast to this day for invading. I've gotten so many free kills with it, but I would hate to see it nerfed just because it's good for invades. Gambit as a game mode does have a lot of potential to be fun, and I am no game dev, so I don't know all the issues that come with balancing a game mode like this, but from what I can see, they are putting a lot of effort into it to get very little in return. Ever since the honeymoon phase ended about 2 weeks after Forsaken launch, Gambit has been complained about a lot. But as I said, I still find fun in clearing out waves of enemies. The back and forth damage battle during a primeval phase can be exhilarating. Maybe you just don't allow invades during the moat collection phase. This allows teams to focus on slaying, but you can still have that primeval healing mechanic. Or maybe they introduce some new mechanic, a mini boss that spawns and if you kill it, it heals the other team's primeval. But they are tanky, so they take away damage that you could be dealing to your primeval. That is a risk-reward play that stays true to the definition of Gambit, while not being as busted as invaders wiping your team over and over. Like I mentioned before, the game has evolved a lot since Gambit released with Forsaken. Maybe it is time for Gambit to evolve. At the very least, I would like to see Bungie try an invader-free week in the lab's playlist and just see how the community reacts. They don't have much to lose at this point. A PvEvP mode is kind of what Gambit is all about, so I do understand that changing this aspect fundamentally changes Gambit as a whole, but since it is not an overly well-liked activity, maybe that could be a good thing. I don't know, but they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, nerfing every invader meta over and over has not resulted in a more fun Gambit experience, so why not take a Hail Mary? Why not switch up the formula and see if the community enjoys it? As I said, I actually love creating strong Gambit builds. It is actually the game mode where you could most flex your build creativity muscle. In Season of the Drifter, I ran double shotguns with 1k voices and Thundercrash Titan with enhanced hands-on Insurmountable Skull Fort. The build crafting wasn't as deep back then, but I still had so much fun creating this build. I could take out a Primeval Envoy with 1 Ballistic Slam and then follow up with 2 shots from my Swashbuckler Emperor's Courtesy. The build was amazing in Gambit Prime and really inspired me to want to create a platform to share my awesome builds, which is why I have a YouTube channel today. Again, I freaking love Gambit builds. I, for one, do not want to see this game mode die. I know general sentiment lately has been to just give up on Gambit, but I don't know if that is the answer either. I think the mode could be made enjoyable. I have faith in Bungie. They have made D2 into an incredible game over the last few years. Like, when you look at the character selection screen from D2 Vanilla, it is just a completely different game at this point. I know some people out there do enjoy Gambit, and I am sure lots enjoy invading, and I get that. This change won't please everyone, but literally nothing in Destiny pleases everyone. People love to bitch about this game. Anyways, I just wanted to throw this out there and see what the community thinks. I don't see this being talked about much, so I wanted to bring some light to the topic. I think all the core playlist activities in Destiny need some love. As I said earlier, the game has evolved a lot. Crucible is fast-paced, and yet we have tiny maps like Exodus Blue. It is not built for the current iteration of D2 in my opinion. Crucible as a whole needs a lot of love. Playlist strikes are in a very rough spot as well. Bring back some OG modifiers like Specialist from D1. Increase the ad density. Up the difficulty. We are so much stronger than we were at D2 Vanilla, and with Solar and Arc 3.0 around the corner, strikes are only going to feel easier. I love Destiny 2 and all the seasonal content we get, but I think we need a season dedicated to the core playlist activities. They have certainly become too stale. But that is an entirely different topic for another day. Gambit is the least old of the 3 playlist activities, but maybe start the overhaul there with the removal of invaders and see how it goes. You never know, it could make it really awesome, but that's just my 2 cents. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I thank you so much for watching. Sound off in the comments down below if you have some suggestions that you think would make Gambit more fun. I would love to hear them. Oh, and if you enjoyed this video, then a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. That's it from me though. Take care.